What's the best way to structure a story if you're giving some sort of business presentation, whether it's in a job interview, talking in a meeting, giving a new business pitch? How do you actually structure a story? Well, for starters, let's step back a minute and ask ourselves the big question. What is the message you're really trying to convey to this audience, whether it's one person, 10 people, or 10,000? The starting point should be your message. It shouldn't just be, I'm a really interesting person, I'm going to tell interesting stories. That works if you're a comedian or a professional humorist, but for most of us, that is not the goal unless you're just with a bunch of friends shooting the breeze. But in a business situation, a professional situation, you should be thinking about, what message do I have that's important to me, that's also going to be interesting and helpful and useful to the audience. So that's the starting point. You need to think of a message that you can sum up in a sentence or so. Then what you need to do is be lazy. Don't write some whole new story, but just go into your database of memories and think about actual live experiences you have, conversations you've had with a real person in a real place about a real problem, what it was, what that person said to you, and what you said back, how it was resolved, and what lesson was learned. That's really all a story was. But again, let's break it down. You need to have a setting. You need to have a problem. You need to have a character. You need some dialogue. You need some emotion. You need some resolution, and you need to explain what the point was. That's really all the structure is. And guess what? You already do that all the time, telling stories to family and friends and colleagues. What you don't do is just go through and deliver the facts. Now, too many people, when they're giving business presentations, just say, here's a fact, here's a bullet point, here's what we did last quarter, the quarter before, the quarter, and it's boring. That's not how you talk in real life. If someone said, how was your weekend? You don't say, well, I got up at 6 o'clock Saturday morning. At 6:01, I went to the bathroom. At 6:02, I brushed my teeth. At 6:03, I pushed the coffee button. No, you instead focus on the most interesting thing. You might say, I had the best weekend ever. We went to the beach. It was a beautiful sunny day, not a cloud in the sky. You go right into a situation where there's a setting. Now, when you're communicating for business purposes, again, you got to have a message there. That's what drives it, not just any interesting thing that happened to you. But the structure is the same. You want to paint a picture in the minds of your audience so they can see it. The beauty of a story is it allows your audience to see, to visualize what you're talking about, not to simply understand at an abstract intellectual level. So, for example, often I try to communicate with people that no one's a great speaker all the time. Everyone's going to have bad days. And the point is, you learn from your mistakes and go on. Now, you understood everything I just said, but it's instantly forgotten. Nothing I just said was memorable. It was straightforward. It was abstract. How do I make that come alive? I'll never forget, about 30 years ago, I was going on a local talk radio show promoting a book of mine. I went into the studio, and it was in South Florida, not that far away from where I am now. And I remember it was kind of odd. My chair was so low. I was sitting, it seemed like about 14 inches above the ground. The talk show host was in a very high chair looking down at me. I thought, this is a little odd or intimidating. I start to give my opinion on the politics of the day, and the host, Mr. Sticks, said, I have more respect for a Klansman than I do for you. And he interrupted me mid-sentence. That's a bit abrupt. I hadn't said anything that inflammatory, anything that disagreeable, and he just cut me off, attacking me. Now, even 30 years ago, I'm thinking of myself as I'm a great media communicator, and I've already done public speaking training and media training. And I'm not going to let him do that. So I'm grabbing the mic. He grabbed the mic from me. I'm pulling the microphone back. And I say, yeah, Mr. Stick, what I really think is, before I could finish, he reaches down under the table, pulls out a gun. Now, do you see my point, Mr. Walker? You know what I said at that point? Absolutely nothing. I was scared. Now, finally, after a minute or so, yes, Mr. Stick, I get your point. And I got out of there. Was it my best media performance, my best speaking performance ever? No, it was not. But I didn't let that one negative experience dissuade me from ever going on a talk show again or speaking again. In fact, I went back to that station 2 weeks later and guest hosted for another show. And I went back regularly. And it made me realize, okay, I'm in this for the long haul. I like communicating. Not every media appearance, not every speech is going to be great. You learn from it and you go on. Okay, so what did I do there? I told a story. It had a setting. South Florida radio studio, palm trees. You could envision that even if you've never been to Florida. Had a character, Mr. Stick. I changed his name, but a real person. Had another character, me. Had actual dialogue. Now, do you see my point, Mr. Walker? And he's pointing the gun. Had a problem. There's a gun pointed at me. Had emotion, how I felt. Had a resolution. I got out of there alive. And I went back. And it had a message, which is no one is going to have every single speech go well every time. You have to learn from it. I'm here not because I'm perfect and know everything and I'm always perfect. I'm here because I simply tried a lot and I've learned. So that is, in a nutshell, how you structure a story and how you tell a story to make it interesting and, most important, memorable to your audience.